What if one simple shift could make narcissists run from you forever? If you're an empath, you've felt the draining pull of narcissists, those people who seem to thrive on your kindness, leaving you exhausted and questioning your worth. But what if your greatest vulnerability, your empathy, could become your ultimate inner strength? Inspired by Carl Jung's groundbreaking wisdom, this video reveals one powerful secret that fed-up empaths can use to become untouchable to narcissistic manipulation. Through real-life stories and practical steps, we'll show you how to transform your pain into authenticity and resilience, reclaiming your power once and for all. Stay with us. This is the self-discovery journey you've been waiting for. Let's dive in. Why do narcissists seem to find you no matter where you go? If you're an empath, you've likely felt like a magnet for toxic people, narcissists who drain your energy, exploit your kindness, and leave you questioning your worth. It's exhausting. And you've probably asked yourself, what's wrong with me? The answer, inspired by Carl Jung's profound wisdom, is nothing. Your empathy isn't a flaw, it's a superpower. But it's also the very thing that draws narcissists to you like moths to a flame. In this chapter, we'll uncover the first two signs that explain why empaths attract narcissists, your dominant feeling function, and your unconscious shadow projection. Through a real-life story and Carl Jung's insights, we'll explore how your resilience can lead to self-discovery and healing, setting the stage for your transformation into someone untouchable to manipulation. Sign 1. Your dominant feeling function as an empath. You have a rare gift, what Carl Jung called feeling function dominance. This means you process the world through emotional resonance, picking up on the unspoken feelings of others with an almost supernatural accuracy. You walk into a room and sense tension before a word is spoken. You hear a friend's "I'm fine," and know they're hurting. This ability to read emotional undercurrents makes you a beacon of empathy, someone others naturally turn to for comfort and understanding. But here's where it gets tricky. Narcissists are drawn to this gift because it feeds their need for attention and validation. Carl Jung observed that people with a dominant feeling function, like empaths, prioritize harmony and connection. You're wired to care deeply, to make decisions based on values rather than cold logic. This is your inner strength, a beautiful, powerful trait that makes you uniquely human. But without awareness, it can also make you vulnerable. Narcissists, who often lack genuine emotional connection, sense your ability to provide the narcissistic supply. They crave your emotional reactions, your care, your willingness to fix their pain. They latch onto you because you feel what they cannot, and they exploit that to fill their own void. The first step to healing this dynamic is recognizing that your empathy isn't a weakness. It's a superpower that needs boundaries to protect your authenticity. Sign 2. Your unconscious shadow projection. Here's where Carl Jung's wisdom takes us deeper. Empaths don't just attract narcissists because of their empathy. They attract them because of something Carl Jung called shadow projection. Your shadow, according to Carl Jung, is the part of yourself you've pushed away, the parts you've been taught to reject, like your assertiveness, your anger, or your right to prioritize yourself. As an empath, you've likely been conditioned to see your sensitivity as a flaw, to believe that being too emotional makes you weak. So, you disown your power, your ability to say no, your capacity to stand up for yourself. And here's the twist: you unconsciously project that disowned power onto others, especially narcissists. Narcissists seem confident, assertive, even powerful. They exude the qualities you've been taught you lack. But Carl Jung discovered that this is an illusion. Narcissists are not powerful. They're trapped in what Jung called inflation, a false persona that hides a deeply wounded, shame-filled core. When you project your own power onto them, you give them control, believing they have something you don't. The truth, that power is already within you, buried in your shadow. Self-discovery begins when you recognize this projection and start reclaiming your inner strength. By understanding this dynamic, you're taking the first step toward personal growth, breaking the cycle of attraction to narcissists and paving the way for healing. A real-life story, Lisa's awakening. Let's meet Lisa, a 34-year-old nurse who embodies these signs. Growing up in a chaotic household, Lisa learned early to read her parents' moods to keep the peace. She became the family's emotional anchor, always soothing arguments and putting others' needs first. This empathy carried into her adult life, where she excelled at her job, comforting patients with a warmth that made them feel seen. But Lisa also attracted narcissists like a magnet. At work, a self-absorbed colleague, Mark, constantly leaned on her for emotional support, taking credit for her ideas and leaving her drained. In her personal life, friendships often felt one-sided, with Lisa giving endlessly while receiving little in return. Lisa wondered, why do I keep attracting these people? She felt guilty, as if her kindness was a flaw. Then, she stumbled across Carl Jung's work on feeling function, dominance, and shadow projection. Through journaling, Lisa realized her empathy was a gift, not a curse, but it was also why Mark targeted her. She was giving him the narcissistic supply he craved, absorbing his complaints without setting limits. More importantly, she saw how she projected her own disowned power onto Mark, admiring his confidence while doubting her own. This realization was a turning point. Lisa began to see that her sensitivity wasn't the problem, it was her lack of boundaries. By starting to value her authenticity and resilience, Lisa took the first steps toward transformation, learning to protect her energy without losing her compassion. The lesson: your empathy is your strength, not your weakness. Lisa's story shows that your empathy is a superpower, but it's also why narcissists are drawn to you. Your feeling function dominance makes you a light in a world that often feels dark. But without awareness, it can leave you vulnerable to manipulation. Carl Jung's concept of shadow projection reveals that the power you see in narcissists is actually your own, waiting to be reclaimed. Healing starts when you recognize that there's nothing wrong with you. Your sensitivity is a gift that needs protection. By understanding why narcissists are drawn to you, you're beginning a journey of self-discovery that will lead to personal growth and inner strength. The first step is simple: stop believing your empathy is a flaw, and start seeing it as the foundation of your authenticity. What about you? Have you ever felt drained by a narcissist in your life? Maybe it's a coworker, a friend, or even a family member who seems to take without giving back. Share your story in the comments below. We'd love to hear how your empathy has shaped your experiences. Stay with us as we dive into the next chapter, where we'll explore the hidden power in your shadow and how it can make you untouchable to manipulation. Let's keep going. What if the power to stop narcissists in their tracks is already inside you, just waiting to be unleashed? As an empath, you've spent years believing your sensitivity makes you vulnerable, that your kindness is a target for manipulation. But Carl Jung's wisdom reveals a game-changing truth. The very thing you've been taught to hide your shadow holds the key to becoming untouchable. In this chapter, we'll explore two critical signs that your suffering has shaped you: your disowned power and your suppressed anger. Through Lisa's ongoing story and Carl Jung's profound insights, we'll uncover how embracing your shadow can spark a transformation that leads to self-discovery, resilience, and inner strength. This is where you stop being a victim and start reclaiming your authenticity. Sign 3. Your disowned power, deep inside. You've always had a spark of power, a quiet, untapped strength that you've been conditioned to ignore. Carl Jung called this part of your shadow the aspects of yourself you've pushed away because society, family, or past experiences told you they were wrong. For empaths, this disowned power often shows up as the ability to stand up for yourself, to prioritize your needs, or to take control of your life. Maybe you were taught that being too assertive makes you selfish, or that putting yourself first is unspiritual. So, you buried that power, believing it wasn't meant for someone as sensitive as you. Carl Jung discovered that this disowned power is exactly what narcissists exploit. They sense your empathy and kindness, but they also sense the strength you've hidden away. When you project that power onto them, admiring their confidence or envying their boldness, you give them control. But here's the secret, that power is yours. It's in your ability to say no, to walk away from toxic dynamics, to claim your space in the world. Healing begins when you recognize this shadow as a gift, not a flaw. By reclaiming your disowned power, you're not becoming a narcissist. You're stepping into authenticity, building the inner strength to protect your energy. This is the first step toward personal growth that makes you untouchable to manipulation. Sign 4. Your suppressed anger. It's a word that makes many empaths flinch. You've been taught that anger is bad, destructive, or unlovable. So, you've suppressed it, choosing harmony over conflict, even when it costs you your peace. This is the fourth sign of your journey through suffering. Your suppressed anger is part of your shadow, and it's a vital piece of your resilience. Carl Jung believed that anger isn't just a negative emotion, it's the guardian of your boundaries. It's the fire that says, enough is enough. When someone crosses a line, for empaths, this fire is often dimmed, buried under layers of guilt or fear of being seen as mean. Narcissists thrive on this suppression. They push your buttons, knowing you're unlikely to push back. They rely on your need for harmony to keep you in their orbit. But Carl Jung's wisdom shows us that embracing healthy anger doesn't make you cruel, it makes you powerful. When you allow yourself to feel and express anger in a balanced way, you set boundaries that narcissists can't cross. This isn't about lashing out, it's about channeling your anger into clarity and strength. Transformation happens when you see anger as a tool for self-discovery, a signal that your needs matter. By integrating this part of your shadow, you build inner strength that stops manipulation in its tracks. A real-life story. Lisa's breakthrough. Let's return to Lisa, the nurse we met in Chapter 1. Lisa's empathy made her a magnet for narcissists, like her colleague Mark, who drained her energy with endless demands. But as Lisa dove deeper into Carl Jung's teachings, she began to see her shadow in a new light. She realized she'd been disowning her power for years. Growing up, Lisa was praised for being the good girl who never complained, always helped, and avoided conflict. She saw assertiveness as selfish, so she projected her strength onto people like Mark, envying his ability to take charge while feeling powerless herself. One day, Lisa reached a breaking point. Mark asked her to cover his shift again, knowing she'd say yes. But this time, something shifted. Lisa felt a spark of anger, a quiet, burning realization that she deserved better. Inspired by Carl Jung's concept of the shadow, she started journaling about her disowned power. She wrote about times she wanted to say no but didn't, times she let others take credit for her work because she feared seeming aggressive. Through therapy, Lisa began practicing small acts of assertiveness, saying no to minor requests, speaking up in meetings, and prioritizing her own needs. To her surprise, These acts didn't make her feel selfish, they made her feel alive. Lisa also confronted her suppressed anger. She'd always seen it as wrong. But Carl Jung's teachings helped her understand that anger was her protector. When Mark tried to guilt-trip her again, Lisa calmly but firmly set a boundary. "I can't cover for you this time. I have my own priorities." Mark was stunned, unsure how to respond. For the first time, Lisa felt authenticity in her voice, a sense of inner strength she'd never known. This was her transformation, a step towards self-discovery that made her less vulnerable to manipulation. By embracing her shadow, Lisa wasn't becoming cold, she was becoming real. The lesson: your shadow is your power. Lisa's story shows that your shadow, your disowned power, and suppressed anger isn't something to fear. It's the key to breaking free from narcissistic manipulation. Carl Jung's concept of shadow integration teaches us that healing comes from embracing these hidden parts of yourself. Your power isn't in mimicking a narcissist's arrogance, it's in owning your right to say no, to feel anger, to protect your energy. Your resilience lies in recognizing that these traits don't make you less empathetic, they make you whole. Personal growth means stepping into this power with courage, knowing that your authenticity is your greatest defense. What about you? What's stopping you from embracing your anger to set boundaries? Maybe you've been taught that saying no makes you selfish. Or maybe you've buried your power to keep the peace. Share your story in the comments below. We'd love to hear how you're starting to reclaim your inner strength. Stay with us for the next chapter, where we'll reveal the one shift that changes everything, making narcissists powerless against you. Let's keep going. What if one single realization could make narcissists powerless against you as an empath? You've spent years carrying the weight of others' emotions, feeling responsible for their happiness, their pain, their chaos. It's exhausting, and it's exactly what narcissists exploit. But Carl Jung's profound wisdom offers a game-changing shift, a moment of transformation that rewires how you interact with the world. In this chapter, we'll explore two pivotal signs that mark this turning point: your unconscious guilt and your shift to conscious compassion. Through Lisa's ongoing journey and Carl Jung's revolutionary concept of enantiodromia, we'll uncover how this one realization can lead to healing, self-discovery, and inner strength, making you untouchable to narcissistic manipulation. This is where your resilience becomes your power, and your authenticity becomes your shield. Sign 5. Your unconscious guilt. If you're an empath, you've likely felt a nagging sense of guilt whenever you prioritize yourself. It's as if saying no or stepping away from someone's drama makes you selfish, unkind, or unworthy of love. This is the 5th sign of your journey through suffering unconscious guilt. Carl Jung understood that empaths often operate from this hidden guilt, a belief that they're responsible for fixing everyone's problems. Maybe you grew up in a family where you were the peacemaker, always soothing others' emotions to keep things stable. Or maybe society taught you that your empathy, your ability to feel others' pain, means you must always put others first. Carl Jung called this guilt unconscious because it's so deeply ingrained, you might not even notice it. It's the voice that whispers, "If I don't help, I'm failing them." Narcissists are masters at sensing this guilt. They know you'll take on their emotional burdens, absorb their chaos, and sacrifice your own needs to keep the peace. They thrive on this, using guilt-tripping, emotional blackmail, or subtle manipulation to keep you hooked. But here's the truth. Carl Jung uncovered this guilt isn't yours to carry. It's a learned response, not a reflection of your worth. Recognizing this unconscious guilt is the first step toward healing. By seeing it for what it is, a shadow belief, you begin to break free from the cycle of manipulation, stepping into personal growth that honors your authenticity. Sign 6. Your shift to conscious compassion now. Comes the moment that changes everything, what Carl Jung called enantiodromia. The point where something transforms into its opposite. For empaths, this is the realization that you are not responsible for other people's emotions. This is the 6th sign. And it's the heart of your transformation. When you let go of unconscious guilt, you don't stop caring. You shift to what Carl Jung called conscious compassion. This is a way of loving that is boundaried, intentional, and sustainable. It's about feeling for others without feeling obligated to fix them. About offering empathy without losing yourself. Conscious compassion creates what Carl Jung termed psychological boundaries, not walls that shut people out, but a semi-permeable membrane that allows genuine connection while filtering out manipulation. When you embody this shift, narcissists lose their power over you. They can't manipulate someone who no longer feels responsible for their emotional state. This isn't about becoming cold or distant. It's about becoming so authentic that you can love deeply without being drained. This shift is the cornerstone of self-discovery, where you learn to balance your empathy with inner strength, creating a life where you thrive, not just survive. A real-life story. Lisa's liberation. Let's return to Lisa, the nurse we've been following. Lisa's empathy made her a target for her narcissistic colleague, Mark, who relied on her to carry his emotional weight. In Chapter 2, she began reclaiming her disowned power and suppressed anger, setting small boundaries that shifted their dynamic. But the real breakthrough came when Lisa confronted her unconscious guilt. Through her exploration of Carl Jung's teachings, she realized she'd been carrying a heavy burden, the belief that she had to fix everyone's problems to be worthy. Growing up, Lisa was the one who mediated her parents' arguments, always putting their needs above her own. This pattern followed her into adulthood, where she felt guilty every time she considered saying no to Mark's demands. One day, Lisa stumbled across Carl Jung's concept of enantiodromia in a psychology podcast. The idea that she wasn't responsible for others' emotions hit her like a lightning bolt. She began journaling about the guilt that kept her tethered to toxic dynamics. "Why do I feel like I'm failing if I don't help everyone?" she wrote. Through therapy, Lisa practiced visualizing her psychological boundaries as a protective shield, not to block connection, but to filter out manipulation. She started experimenting with conscious compassion. When Mark complained about his workload, instead of jumping in to fix it, she said, "That sounds tough. I hope you find a way to manage it." Her tone was kind, but firm, offering empathy without taking on his burden. The result was astonishing. Mark, used to Lisa's endless support, didn't know how to respond. He tried guilt-tripping her, but it didn't work. Lisa's conscious compassion made her invisible to his manipulation. She was still caring, but no longer a target. This shift wasn't just about Mark. It transformed Lisa's entire life. She stopped feeling obligated to fix her friends' problems or absorb her family's stress. She began to prioritize her own needs, taking time for hobbies, resting without guilt, and saying no when she needed to. This wasn't selfishness. It was authenticity. Lisa's resilience shone through as she embraced her inner strength, realizing that her empathy was a gift, not a burden. Her journey of self-discovery was now in full swing, paving the way for a life of healing and personal growth. The lesson: you are not responsible for others' emotions. Lisa's liberation shows that the one shift that changes everything is letting go of unconscious guilt and embracing conscious compassion. Carl Jung's concept of enantiodromia teaches us that this realization is a turning point, a moment where you transform from someone who carries others' pain to someone who loves without losing themselves. Your empathy is still your superpower, but it's now paired with psychological boundaries that protect your energy. This shift doesn't make you less caring. It makes you free. Transformation happens when you stop believing you have to fix everyone and start honoring your own worth. This is where your resilience becomes a shield, and your authenticity becomes a light that narcissists can't touch. What about you? What would change if you stopped feeling responsible for others' happiness? Maybe you've carried guilt for saying no, or felt drained by someone who expects you to fix their chaos. Share your story in the comments below. We'd love to hear how this shift could spark your self-discovery. Stay with us for the next chapter, where we'll share practical tools to make you untouchable to narcissists. Inspired by Carl Jung's timeless techniques, let's keep going. What if you could turn your empathy into a shield that narcissists can't penetrate? As an empath, you've learned that your sensitivity is a superpower, not a weakness. You've started reclaiming your inner strength by embracing your shadow and letting go of unconscious guilt. But how do you put this wisdom into action? In this chapter, we'll explore 4 practical tools, inspired by Carl Jung's transformative teachings, that make you untouchable to narcissistic manipulation. The mirror technique, withdrawal of projection, sacred no, and emotional aikido. Through Lisa's evolving journey and Carl Jung's timeless insights, you'll discover how to protect your energy while staying true to your authenticity. These tools are your roadmap to healing, self-discovery, and personal growth, empowering you to break free from toxic dynamics once and for all. Tool 1. The mirror technique. Carl Jung taught that what triggers us in others often reflects a part of our own shadow, the parts we've denied or suppressed. The mirror technique is about using this insight to disarm narcissists. When a narcissist's behavior, like their arrogance or manipulation, gets under your skin, pause and ask, what part of me is this reflecting? This doesn't mean you're as toxic as they are. It means recognizing that you, too, have the capacity for self-interest or assertiveness. By owning this consciously, you neutralize their power over you. For Lisa, the nurse we've been following, the mirror technique was a game changer. When her narcissistic colleague Mark took credit for her work, it sparked frustration. Instead of reacting, she used Carl Jung's advice to reflect, why does this bother me so much? Through journaling, Lisa realized she was triggered because she'd suppressed her own desire for recognition, fearing it was selfish. By acknowledging her own need to be seen, she stopped projecting that onto Mark. This shift allowed her to respond calmly, addressing his behavior without feeding his narcissistic supply. The mirror technique isn't just about understanding others, it's about self-discovery, helping you reclaim your inner strength and stay grounded in your authenticity. Tool 2. Withdrawal of projection. Narcissists thrive on the projections you cast onto them, your belief that they're more powerful, confident, or in control than you. Carl Jung's withdrawal of projection technique flips this dynamic. When you catch yourself thinking, if only they'd change, I'd be happy. Stop and turn the focus inward. Ask what in me needs to change or be accepted. This redirects your energy from fixing others to healing yourself, breaking the cycle of dependency on their behavior. Lisa applied this tool when Mark's constant demands made her feel powerless. She used to think, if Mark would just appreciate me, I'd feel better. But Carl Jung's wisdom helped her see this as a projection of her own disowned power. Through therapy, she practiced asking, what do I need to accept about myself? She realized she needed to value her own contributions instead of seeking Mark's approval. By withdrawing her projection, Lisa stopped giving Mark power over her emotions. This act of personal growth made her less reactive, leaving Mark's manipulations ineffective. It's a powerful step toward transformation, where you take back control of your emotional world. Tool 3. The sacred no. Saying no can feel like a betrayal of your empathetic nature, but Carl Jung saw it as a sacred act. The sacred no is about protecting the space where your true yes can thrive. It's not about being unkind. It's about honoring your authenticity by setting boundaries. For empaths, saying no is a radical act of resilience, a declaration that your needs matter just as much as anyone else's. Lisa struggled with this at first. She feared saying no to Mark's requests would make her seem cold, but inspired by Carl Jung's teachings, she began to see no as a tool for healing. One day, when Mark asked her to take on an extra project, she took a deep breath and said, "I can't take that on right now." Her voice was steady, her tone kind, but firm. Mark, expecting her usual compliance, was thrown off. This small act of the sacred no shifted their dynamic. Lisa wasn't shutting him out. She was protecting her energy, allowing her to show up more fully in her work and life. This tool is about inner strength, teaching you to prioritize yourself without guilt. Tool 4 Emocional, Aikido. Carl Jung's final tool. Emotional Aikido is about redirecting others' emotions without absorbing them. Like an Aikido master who uses an opponent's energy against them, you can acknowledge a narcissist's feelings without taking them on. This means listening with empathy, but not letting their chaos become yours. It's about staying present without becoming entangled, a skill that makes you untouchable to manipulation. Lisa mastered emotional Aikido over time. When Mark vented about his stress, she used to absorb it, feeling drained afterward. But with practice, she learned to respond differently. "That sounds really tough," she'd say, validating his feelings without offering to fix them. By redirecting his emotional energy, she stayed compassionate but detached. This technique allowed Lisa to maintain her authenticity while protecting her energy. It's a powerful tool for self-discovery, helping you navigate relationships with clarity and strength. A real-life story. Lisa's triumph. Lisa's journey with these tools was nothing short of transformative. After embracing the mirror technique, she stopped letting Mark's arrogance trigger her. She saw his behavior as a reflection of her own suppressed need for recognition, which gave her clarity to address it directly. Using withdrawal of projection, she stopped seeking Mark's validation and focused on valuing herself. The sacred no became her mantra. She started saying no to requests that didn't align with her priorities, like taking on extra shifts or helping Mark with tasks he could handle himself. And with emotional Aikido, she learned to listen to his complaints without internalizing them, offering kindness without sacrificing her peace. The result: Mark's manipulations stopped working. He tried guilt-tripping her, but Lisa's psychological boundaries held firm. He couldn't get the emotional reaction he craved, so he moved on to easier targets. But Lisa's triumph went beyond Mark. These tools reshaped her entire life. She set boundaries with friends who drained her, prioritized her hobbies, and even started a blog to share her journey of self-discovery. Her colleagues noticed her newfound confidence, and some asked for advice on handling toxic dynamics. Lisa wasn't just surviving, she was thriving, embodying the resilience and inner strength Carl Jung described. Her transformation was proof that these tools don't just protect you, they empower you to live authentically. The lesson: your empathy is your shield. These 4 tools, the mirror technique, withdrawal of projection, sacred no, and emotional Aikido, are your arsenal for becoming untouchable. Carl Jung's teachings show that you don't need to shut down your empathy to protect yourself. Instead, you can channel it into a shield that guards your energy while honoring your authenticity. These tools are about healing the wounds that make you vulnerable, turning your resilience into power. By practicing them, you're not just breaking free from narcissists, you're stepping into a life of personal growth where manipulation has no place. What about you? Which of these tools will you try first to protect your energy? Maybe it's saying a sacred no to someone who's been draining you. or using emotional aikido to stay compassionate without taking on their chaos. Share your story in the comments below. We'd love to hear how you're starting to reclaim your inner strength. Stay with us for the next chapter, where we'll explore how you can become a wounded healer, using your empathy to inspire others while staying untouchable to narcissists. Let's keep going. What if your deepest wounds could become your greatest gift to the world as an empath? You've walked a path of pain, learning to harness your empathy, reclaim your inner strength, and set boundaries that make you untouchable to narcissists. But this journey isn't just about protecting yourself. It's about becoming a wounded healer, a beacon of authenticity, who inspires others. In this final chapter, we'll explore two profound signs that mark your transformation, achieving psychological individuation and healing the collective unconscious. Through Lisa's inspiring story and Carl Jung's timeless wisdom, we'll see how your resilience can lead to self-discovery and personal growth. Not just for you, but for the world around you. This is where your healing becomes a light that no narcissist can dim. Sign 7. Achieving psychological individuation. You've reclaimed your power, embraced your anger, and let go of the guilt that once tethered you to narcissists. Now, you're stepping into what Carl Jung called individuation, the process of becoming your truest, most whole self. This is the 7th sign of your journey, the culmination of your transformation. Individuation isn't about becoming perfect or erasing your wounds. It's about integrating every part of you, your empathy, your strength, your light, and your shadow, into a cohesive whole. It's about living so authentically that manipulation simply has no place to land. Carl Jung believed that individuation is the ultimate goal of psychological growth. For empaths, it means balancing your empathy with inner strength, allowing you to care deeply without losing yourself. An individuated empath doesn't react impulsively to others' emotions. They respond with what Carl Jung called conscious empathy, a deliberate, boundaried compassion that protects their energy. This state makes you untouchable to narcissists because you no longer provide the narcissistic supply they crave. They can't manipulate someone who is fully present in their authenticity, grounded in their own worth. This is where your resilience shines, turning your wounds into wisdom and your pain into purpose. Sign 8. Healing the collective unconscious. Your transformation doesn't stop with you. It ripples outward, touching the world in ways you might not even see. This is the 8th sign as an individuated empath. You become what Carl Jung called a wounded healer, someone who uses their healing to uplift others. Carl Jung believed that every person who achieves individuation contributes to the collective unconscious, the shared psychological space that connects all humanity. By healing your own wounds, you help heal the collective wounds of narcissism, a cultural phenomenon fueled by a world that often values image over authenticity, control over connection. As a wounded healer, you embody what Carl Jung called morphic resonance, a field effect that makes it easier for others to find their own wholeness. Your empathy, once a magnet for manipulation, becomes a light that guides others towards self-discovery. You don't just protect yourself from narcissists, you inspire those around you to set boundaries, embrace their strength, and live authentically. This is the ultimate act of personal growth, where your journey becomes a gift to the world, proving that healing is not just personal but collective. A real-life story. Lisa's legacy. Let's return to Lisa, the nurse whose journey we followed. Lisa started as an empath, overwhelmed by her narcissistic colleague Mark, drained by his demands and her own unconscious guilt. Through Carl Jung's teachings, she reclaimed her power, embraced her anger, and shifted to conscious compassion, setting boundaries that made her untouchable. But her transformation didn't end there. As Lisa integrated her shadow and practiced the tools from Chapter 4 mirror technique, withdrawal of projection, sacred, no, and emotional aikido, she began to embody individuation. Lisa noticed a profound change in herself. She no longer felt compelled to fix everyone's problems. When a friend vented about a bad day, she listened with conscious empathy, offering support without taking on their pain. At work, she spoke up in meetings, shared her ideas confidently, and set boundaries with colleagues who tried to overstep. Mark, unable to manipulate her anymore, stopped targeting her altogether. Lisa's inner strength was now a quiet force, not a loud display like a narcissist's. She was living as her truest self, fully integrated and authentic. But Lisa's impact went beyond her own life. Her newfound resilience inspired others. A co-worker, Sarah, noticed Lisa's confidence and asked how she handled Mark's manipulations. Lisa shared her journey, explaining how Carl Jung's tools helped her set boundaries without losing her empathy. Sarah, also an empath, started practicing the sacred no, finding her own voice. Lisa's blog, where she wrote about her self-discovery, began attracting readers who resonated with her story. One reader commented, "Your words help me realize I don't have to carry everyone's pain." Lisa was becoming a wounded healer, using her healing to light the way for others. Carl Jung's concept of morphic resonance came to life in Lisa's story. Her transformation created a ripple effect, encouraging those around her to embrace their own inner strength. She wasn't just protecting herself from narcissists, she was contributing to the collective unconscious, helping to heal a culture that often rewards narcissism over authenticity. Lisa's journey showed that empaths don't just survive, they thrive, becoming beacons of hope and personal growth for others. The lesson: your wounds are your wisdom. Lisa's legacy proves that your journey as an empath is about more than escaping narcissists. It's about becoming a wounded healer. Carl Jung's concept of individuation shows that by integrating your shadow and embracing conscious empathy, you become untouchable to manipulation. While inspiring others to find their wholeness, your resilience transforms your pain into wisdom, your empathy into a gift that uplifts without draining you. This is the heart of healing, not erasing your wounds, but using them to create a life of authenticity and purpose. As a wounded healer, you don't just change your own story, you change the world. One ripple at a time. What about you? How has your journey as an empath inspired those around you? Maybe you've set a boundary that encouraged a friend to do the same. Or maybe your resilience has sparked hope in someone else. Share your story in the comments below. We'd love to hear how you're becoming a wounded healer. Stay with us for the outro, where we'll tie it all together and inspire you to keep shining your authentic light. Let's finish strong. Your empathy isn't your weakness, it's your superpower. Through this journey, inspired by Carl Jung's timeless wisdom, we've uncovered how you, as an empath, can transform your deepest vulnerabilities into unshakable inner strength. From understanding why narcissists are drawn to your empathy, to reclaiming your disowned power, embracing your anger, and letting go of unconscious guilt, you've learned to set psychological boundaries that make you untouchable. That one shift, realizing you're not responsible for others' emotions, has sparked a transformation that leads to self-discovery and wholeness. You've become more than a survivor. You're a wounded healer, a psychological lighthouse whose resilience lights the way for others. But this isn't the end. It's the beginning of a life where manipulation has no hold on you. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Your authenticity is your greatest defense, a force so powerful that narcissists can't touch it." By integrating your shadow and embracing conscious compassion, you're not just protecting yourself, you're healing the collective unconscious, inspiring others to find their inner strength. Your empathy is no longer a target, It's a gift that uplifts without draining you. So, take a moment to honor your journey, your scars, and the personal growth that's brought you here. You are unstoppable. Now, it's your turn. Which part of this journey hit you the hardest? Was it learning to say a sacred no? Practicing emotional aikido? Or realizing you're a wounded healer? Share your story in the comments below. Your resilience could inspire someone else to break free. Let's build a community of healing and self-discovery together. If this video moved you, hit that like button, subscribe to Young Psyche Hub, and ring the bell for more Carl Jung-inspired wisdom to fuel your transformation. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Your story could be the spark that changes their life. Thank you for being here now. Go out and shine your authentic light. Untouchable and free.